Hey, how's everybody doing? This is Labor Day weekend. So those of you who celebrate, happy Labor Day. Want to do a shout out to all those folks working hard and doing their work for our society and for themselves. We appreciate you very much. And a lot of times Labor Day is kind of part of what we call the unofficial end of summer, or what I like to sometimes look at the unofficial start of the fall. So this is going to be a fun episode. This is episode 7 of Sobriety and Everything Else. My name is Eric Andrew, and I'm zooming into you from my studios in my dining room. Yes, I said it, in my dining room. And I'm really happy to be here. And just wanted to throw out a couple of things. If you want to get in touch with me about recovery coaching or life coaching, you can do that 2 ways. One, you can join or go to my website, which is ericandrewcoaching.com, or you can email me directly at ericandrewcoaching12@gmail.com. So you have 2 ways: the website, ericandrewcoaching.com, or my email, ericandrewcoaching12@gmail.com. All right. With that said, what we've named this today is Reboot. So I kind of call it that because of what I said earlier. Some people kind of look at this as the unofficial end of summer. Some people kind of look at this as the beginning of the fall festivities, all of that. So new season is starting to come and old season is starting to go out. So really thought this would be such a great opportunity to kind of take a look at our recovery and how does that work. And I'm really trying to talk to those people that might be watching right now that are kind of on the fence, not sure, hey, do I really have a problem here? Do I really need to do something about it? Just kind of a side note to all of that. If you're questioning that and you're watching a podcast about recovery, I don't know. My guess would be you probably do have something going on and you may want to address it. Now, if you're like me, the very beginning of all of this was the question of, do I really have a problem? Do I really want to look at this, and do I want to admit that I have a problem? Because if I say, hey, I think I want to go into recovery, I think I want to stop drinking, then somewhere in our minds we feel like that we're admitting that we have a problem, or that we are giving up, which is kind of then admitting that we have a problem. And there's that fight inside of us that doesn't want that to happen, right? Well, what I'm here to tell you is the other side, the side of recovery, the side of giving up the drinking, or in some cases other addictions, is such a great side to go on to. It opens the door to so much more life experiences than you can imagine, I think, But also, in the same respect, it doesn't take away all the things that maybe you've done that have caused some problems for you, or maybe just in terms of looking at life and realizing that life is life, and things are going to happen, and good and bad is going to happen. But if you can approach good and bad from the same perspective, meaning a clear head and a clear mind, you have a better shot of navigating through it and getting to the other side. When you are scattered because of your addiction issues and you're running to your drink or whatever to hide from the problems that might be coming up, that's kind of tougher. So I want to kind of talk a little bit to you today about those things. So why should you recover? What are reasons to recover? So I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to intertwine my own world into this. And so you can kind of see where I'm coming from. So like I said, if you're sitting here and you're wondering, and I did the same thing, I sat here and I wondered, I'm sorry, I'm referring to my notes because I really want to do this right today. So if you're sitting there wondering, do I quit or not quit? In my opinion, probably you need to quit. Probably there's a problem going on. Probably you need to stop fooling yourself and telling yourself you're okay when you're not, right? By the way, just so you know, it is actually a sign of strength that you can say, hey, I need help. Hey, I need to stop doing this activity. It's not helping me. It's not good for me, and that goes in a lot of things in life. But the first step here is that idea of recovery. And I had a hard time with that. When I first started with recovery just briefly, I fought it. I mean, I was mandated, you know, the first step was I was really mandated to have to go to, and the only thing that the courts seemed to know anything about was AA. So they mandated me to go to AA, which meant that I had to go and get signatures. And I guess I could have cheated on that, but I went and I got the signatures. But I would sit there and listen, and I would go, okay, well, but that's not me. Well, that's not me. That's not me. I would get my signature and I'd walk out and I would go to the bar to watch football. So in no way was I learning anything. But one thing that I was doing that was really important in all of that was I had made a decision in my own mind that I was not going to make a decision about my own sobriety when I was being told I had to do something. So I was in the middle of being told by the courts that I needed to go and do this stuff. So my idea was I wanted to make this decision on my own terms without something hanging over my head. So I said, you know what? I'm going to let it be what it is. I'm going to do what I have to do. And then I'm going to make a decision down the road. So I allowed myself to go. I allowed myself to break the rules. You know, I broke and I'm not suggesting that makes it right. It's not right to break the rules. You know, the people are trying to help you. And I was just kind of spitting in the face of that. But to be honest with you, I was an addict. And think about it. You know, how many rules do you break? How many, you know, false truths do you put out there? How much of the truth do you bend in order to get your way? You know, in order to get what you want ultimately, which is that drink, right? So I'm not the only one that's done that. Probably most of us have experienced that in some way. Maybe some of you are nodding your head, yep, I've done that. So I had to get to that point where I could sit back and make that decision. And then I made it. I made it. I'm kind of trying to move this along a little bit. There's more to the story, but I did finally make it a year after I got through everything. I was still drinking and still everything else. And I said to myself, wait, you know where this got you before. You know that the next step is going to probably be jail and loss of your job, which you loved, and everything else. Is that really what you want? And I got to the end of my rope and I said, no, that's not what I want. And the morning I woke up to make that decision, I woke up, I was filled with anxiety because I had drank the night before. I felt completely alone, completely just defeated and sad. I had been looking at some online things and stuff to do in terms of sobriety. So I kind of had a little bit of a plan when I thought about moving that direction. So I made the choice. I said, okay, I'm going to do that. I joined this online group. I told some friends, hey, today was my day one and I'm not going to drink. And I started the process. And as time went on, things started to get better. All right. So let me see the next one. So one of the things that I really learned in all of this and I wanted to bring up this morning is this idea of emotional sobriety. All right. Emotional sobriety, the idea of your emotions, where your emotions are. So let's kind of go back to that. And that's part of this beginning that we have to realize. One of the first steps that you realize is emotionally, and they've done this in studies, that we all are stunted emotionally at the age that our addiction picked up. Let me just say that again. We are stunted at the emotional age that our addiction picked up. For me, that was college. So somewhere around 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, I started to really pick up my drinking. So I felt like when I kind of came into recovery, I was dealing with this idea that emotionally I was really a 19, 20-year-old, which meant I was still living in college. I was still in that mode of college. And that went with how I dated, that went with how I partied, that went with everything. Like I thought the party was going to continue for the rest of my life. And I had to realize that that's where it was at. And there was a lot of growth that had to come with that. So I've been doing a lot of that, a lot of growth, to get to the place that I am today. You know, I'm 5.5+ years into my own recovery, from alcohol abuse, and, every day gets more interesting. Some days are really good days. Some days are hard days because I really have to work on some of these areas in my life that required growth. And I would argue that probably most of what you're going to find is that you need to grow in pretty much every area. So when we talk about areas, what are we talking about? So we're talking about how you show up at work, as the worker, whether you are in management, whether you are a worker, whether you are a laborer, whatever job that you might have. How do you show up for that job? How did you show up for that job when you were drinking? And how do you show up for that job when you are in recovery? So that's one area that you have to work on. Another area is the idea of relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, all of that. How do you show up? What's been your MO for the time that you were out there, and what do you want it to be now? Because that MO that you were using out there was that emotionally stunted person at whatever age your addiction picked up. So there's growth that needs to happen. And so what part of that are you going to do? Another area is health. How do you show up for your health? Do you pay attention to your health? Many people in their full addiction did minimal for their health. Didn't go to the doctor. Didn't take showers every day. I mean, that's the simple stuff, right? Didn't take care of their bodies. Didn't try to eat healthy. Ate whatever they could grab. Ate at weird hours. All that kind of stuff. All of those things are emotional growth in terms of how we deal with our health. And that was a big part for me, not just eating, but even getting back into physical stuff. I went from really doing much of nothing to now I go to the gym, I'm a runner, I like to hike, and I also just in the last year have picked up yoga and have been doing yoga. And I do all of those different activities, and I feel really good physically, and that helps with my emotional well-being and all of that, which is certainly a big part of it. Which leads me to the mental health. So we have emotional, but then we have the mental health. So some of us are dealing with some mental stuff. Some of us are dealing with traumas. A lot of people in addiction have past traumas. Now you might go, oh well, wait a minute, I never had like a big trauma or, big horrible kind of thing happen to me. I probably lived like everybody else, in terms of growing up. But then when you really think about it, there's the what they call the small T. So there's small T and large T traumas. A lot of people look at large T traumas as anything physical, and look at small T traumas as more emotional. And a lot of people kind of slough off, especially guys, tend to slough off the emotional and act like, oh, well, that's not really trauma. That was just how I was raised, and I just need to kind of suck it up and deal with it. And then they realize that's trauma, and that can affect how you show up in your relationships, and whether they're work relationships or all the way through to romantic relationships. How you show up, that trauma may be informing that. So you have to work on your mental health, and that may require, hey, I may need to get a therapist, or hey, I may need to join this group that deals with this specific area, whatever it might be. So these are all areas that you would focus in on. Another area that is a big part of my recovery is spirituality and what that is for you. What is that for you? Now, some of you might be sitting there going, oh, wait a minute, time out. No, I'm not a churchgoer. I don't do that stuff. That's not for me. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the bigger word, spirituality. How do you see yourself fitting in the world? Why are you here? How did you get here? What is it that deep down in what I like to call the essence or the spirit of who you are, how does that spirit connect to the universe? And again, if you're sitting here and you're kind of on the fence, you go, whoa, that's a lot of woo-woo. Maybe it sounds that way, but I can tell you I've gotten into what really was my first venture into that was meditation and mindfulness, and just being able to get quiet and really listen, to what was around me and listen to what was going on and kind of see myself in that picture, and then that led to many other things in terms of spirituality and how I look at what I believe in and how I look at how I see myself in the world and in the universe and what that might mean moving forward in how I do things in my life. So a lot of things in my life have kind of started to go towards what I believe in spiritually. right? And this isn't about trying to get you to believe one way or the other. So as you can tell, I'm leaving my own stuff out of this and just talking about it. So there's a lot of things that you get to work on. Now, you will hear also in recovery, people talk about the pink cloud, right? The pink cloud is a part of recovery where after you've gotten some time in, you might start to feel euphoric. You might start to feel like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. This is so great. This is so wonderful. You feel like you're on a cloud and life is just great and people are great and nothing could ever go wrong ever again. I'm in such a great place, right? And that can last for a while. I've known people that have been on kind of a pink cloud for a year, maybe their first year. I've known people have been on pink cloud for a couple of weeks, and it comes and goes. They might have a pink cloud and they might go months where they don't really have it, and then it comes again. So what comes outside of the pink cloud? So when the pink cloud goes away, what comes? Well, what comes is life. And when we are in early recovery, we look at life as kind of the doldrums. Like, oh, this is depressing. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why am I in this recovery thing? This is garbage. It's not giving me what I want. And kind of what happens is you start to recognize that you've had a misperception of what you want. What you think recovery is this perfect situation where all your problems go away and you create this perfect life and everything that's supposed to happen happens and it's a wonderful moment for you. When in reality, life isn't that perfect. Life is not Facebook. Life is not Instagram. Life is not TikTok. Life is real. Life has real people that get sad and get upset and frustrated and they get sick and they have to deal with things and they have car problems and they have house problems and, they have family problems and issues that they have to navigate and deal with. That is life. But how you approach that is really important. And that's where I kind of want to leave this today. I want to just hit on this concept or this idea of happiness and joy, and then maybe we'll talk about that more in another session. But the next step that comes into play is happiness and joy. And one thing that you realize about happiness is happiness can happen even when bad things are happening because it's your approach. The acceptance that bad things are going to happen, that things out of our control are going to happen, but how we approach those things allow us to be in a calm place, allow us to continue to keep our emotions in a consistent area. So that's where sometimes happiness can come from, is that idea of how we approach things, that we're able to approach things in an adult way and do the adult right things to make them happen and work. Joy is part of that, but is more internal. So happiness kind of will, in my mind anyway, tends to be on the outside of us, like what we see and what's going on around us. So we could have happiness because we landed that great job, right? We could have happiness because we're dating somebody that we really wanted to be with and things are going pretty well. That can be happiness, but those are things that are outside of us. The real key is joy, because joy is what's internal. And when we can approach our life from a perspective of even the hard stuff, we still are as even keel about that as we are about the happy stuff, the good stuff, then that's where joy comes. That's that foundation that's inside of us, that we are sure of ourselves, that we believe in ourselves enough, that we have equanimity in our own minds about who we are with other people, and that we allow life to be what it is and accept it for what it is and not fight it and not try to run away from it and just let it be what it is. So, in conclusion, if this is something that you are looking at and you want to put the work and time into it, then I would highly suggest that you either reach out to me, or if you don't want to reach out to me, reach out to a group. There are other groups out there that you can do that are online. There's a group called Recovery Elevator. There's other groups called the Luckiest Club, and amongst a lot of others. There are a lot of, again, your typical ones such as Alcoholics Anonymous or AA. You have others like Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, which is more Christian based than Alcoholics Anonymous. You have Recovery Dharma, which is another group that's out there that kind of uses the Buddhist philosophy in the 12-step programming. So if that's more your style, there's also other groups out there that are more agnostic, that don't really deal with religion in kind of the cornerstone of what they're doing. So if that's more something your style, you can look this stuff up. It does exist and it's out there. So again, if you want to contact me, please do that. I will leave everything down in the box below. But again, ericandrewcoaching.com or ericandrewcoaching12@gmail.com. Those are 2 ways to get a hold of me. Otherwise, some of these other groups, and I will list some of them in the comments below. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. As long as you are stepping out and making that decision that you want to get better and you want to live life on life's terms, then this is the chance to do it. And I would highly motivate you to take that chance. Give it a shot. Listen, you can always go back. That drink is always going to be there. That seat at the bar is always going to be there. You know, that cooler full of booze at your house is always going to be there if you want it to be. Or it can disappear and you can move on in your life and have a life worth living, for sure. All right, everybody, have a great Labor Day weekend, the rest of what's there, and I will talk to you soon.